And here we go. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, then please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Don't blink, otherwise you will miss it. That is the world of the NFL, especially in the off season. The NFL truly never sleeps, even in the deep months as we get into the NFL off season. The new league year hasn't even started yet. And yet we've already had so much news, so much stuff happened since I last did a video. So just wanted to kind of jump on here, give my thoughts on some of the Browns news as well as NFL news just as a whole. I'll start with the Deshaun Watson contract restructure, which is probably what I will title this video. Definitely not for clickbait reasons, I promise. But of course, probably the biggest news regarding the Browns in the last couple of days. So as you all probably know, the Browns, with the most expected contract restructure of all time, they restructured Deshaun Watson's contract for 2025. By doing so, they have created $36 million in cap space for 2025, and they are now below the salary cap threshold and have $12.5 million in cap space, which will become even more once the books balance to start the new league year, as well as obviously some potential more restructures or trades. For those who aren't aware, a contract restructure is essentially where the team converts a player's base salary or roster bonuses into a signing bonus. This doesn't mean that Watson gets a whopping, $36 million directly transferred into his bank account today. As most restructures do still follow the same payment schedule that was already laid out. It's not a pay cut. The player receives the exact same amount of cash, that he was originally owed anyway. It's just a way of manipulating the accounting side of the salary cap to just push the cap, further down the line. So it is funny when you see people praising a player for, a contract restructure when they don't give up any money at all. And in most cases, they didn't even have a choice anyway, as nowadays, most of these contract restructures are, added as clauses, essentially, in contracts that, then automatically activate when the team triggers it. So Watson will still get his $46 million in 2025, just as he has every year under this contract, despite any of the restructures the team has already done. The easiest way to just remember how, restructures work is the player gets the same amount of money, but the team just pushes some of the cap into the future. It's essentially as simple as that. With Watson's contract, each restructure that the team does essentially adds around $9 million of cap to each year's remaining on the contract. If you haven't figured it out by now, I will always be team restructure. Why would you not take advantage of what is essentially an interest-free loan? If you don't believe me when I say the Browns salary cap model works, then I encourage you to check out my interview with Jack Duffin, where he essentially lays out exactly how it works and why it is sustainable. It just makes sense to push the money back. It helps that the team, of course, added 2 void years to the end of the contract back in last December, I believe it was, because now they can spread the cap charges out an extra 2 years past when the contract is up. So when the deal is finally then finally over, thankfully, the remaining dead cap will then just be split in 2027 and 2028. By this point, the salary cap will be even higher. And that number will just be an even smaller percentage of your salary cap than it would be today. But you have to pay the piper in 2027, people will say, to which I say, no, they won't. You're not hindering yourself really financially. You're not hindering your financial flexibility in 2027, because as I mentioned, that final dead cap charge will be a smaller percentage of the salary cap. And, any new players or contracts that you sign that year anyway, you would just backload their contracts so that you aren't stuck with a huge payroll and dead cap for 2027. Trust me when I say it is sustainable. Everybody is wondering how the Eagles are able to keep spending so much money, and it is because they essentially use the exact same model that the Browns do, pretty much to a T. And I get it, of course. It sounds like a stupid comparison. The Eagles just won the Super Bowl, and the Browns finished with the joint worst record in the NFL. But it is still the same model. You can't praise the Eagles for doing it and then in the same breath criticize the Browns. Whilst of course the goal is always to try and win a Super Bowl every year, the accounting doesn't change whether you finish the year as the league champions or with the first overall pick. It remains the same regardless. So whilst the Browns went 4-13 last year, that doesn't mean that their salary cap system doesn't work or that they should stop operating this way. As I mentioned, the Browns currently have around 12 million in cap space after the Watson restructure. That will rise to around 41 million once the new league year starts and they receive their salary cap rollover from last year, and of course the books balance themselves out. This could then double without even needing to cut anybody. A few more restructures to guys like Denzel Ward, Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller, as well as any potential trades, maybe a Greg Newsome. That could result in nearly 90 million of cap space for 2025, and that could theoretically be over 250 million with how the Browns structure their contracts and how they kind of backload them. They obviously won't spend that much money, of course they won't, but having technically having the flexibility to do so doesn't really sound like cap hell to me. So yeah, to sum it up, the Browns have restructured Watson's contract. They've freed up a bunch of cap space. He'll spend the entire 2025 season on IR. The Browns will get some insurance money back as salary cap relief in 2026. They could then either restructure Watson again and cut him, but it's probably more likely at this point that they let him sit out the final year of his contract and then restructure, designate him as a post-June cut in 2027. As mentioned, this would then leave his final dead cap charge to be spread out over 2027 and 2028. And for anyone wondering why they need to cut him when his contract runs out, it's because he had void years, added on to the end of the contract. So you technically cut the player at the start of the next new league year instead of just their contract expiring as it traditionally would. But it is essentially the same thing. The Browns did it with Jadeveon Clowney a couple of years ago. But yeah, Browns free up 36 million, potential to free up a lot more. And no, Deshaun Watson hasn't just received 36 million in his bank account today. And he also, for anyone trying to even spin this as praise for Watson, he also has not taken a pay cut. That's not how these restructures work. Moving on to some more Browns news. Joel Bitonio did the Wolf of Wall Street meme. I'm not fucking leaving. He's coming back. Browns' longest tenured player, coming back for his 12th season. Great news. Still one of the leaders in that locker room, and in my opinion, still one of the better guards in the NFL. You look at the numbers and stuff from last year and the grades. He had one of the best pass blocking grades from any guard in the NFL last year after Watson went down. And, whilst his run blocking grade wasn't great, I think that's purely down to the Browns, run blocking unit as a whole just being so laughably bad. I've spoke all off season about, how I don't think the Browns should tear it all down this off season and rebuild. and that I think they can be a competitive team in 2025. Why do I mention this, you may ask? Well, because I think Joel Bitonio agrees. Would you, if you were Joel Bitonio, come back for a rebuild at this stage in your career? I doubt it. I think he clearly believes in the team's vision for 2025. So not only is this positive news because, Joel Bitonio, everyone loves Joel Bitonio, one of every Browns fan's favourite player. He's a team captain. He's returning. He's not retiring. We get to see him for another year. And not only that, but I do also think that it signals that the Browns are, at least somewhat going in the right direction in the eyes of the players. Just one more player left to get on board with that vision in Myles Garrett. So we'll see how that goes. But Nick Chubb, I did a video on this, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. Go check that video out I did when it was first initially announced that it would be likely that he would enter free agency. Mary Kate Cabot then, in her article, kind of just furthering that, basically said that it's pretty much certain that he will leave. She wasn't talking in like a possibility. She was almost talking in past tense. And, people can have their criticisms of Mary Kate Cabot, but she is arguably the most dialed-in beat writer that the Browns have. There's not many people out there with closer connections to the team. So for her to be speaking in such definitive, statements about Nick Chubb, it does make it think that the end is near. Again, as I said in my previous video about this, I'll do the emotional stuff when it happens. I don't want to do a video of me crying on camera and then to just look pretty silly in a month's time when Nick Chubb re-signs with the Browns. It does look like it's unlikely that will happen. As I said in that video, I've kind of been bracing myself for this. I've tried to brace my listeners for this. So, I've known this could happen. Even if he comes back, he's not going to be the Browns, running back number one. He's not going to be taking the most carries. That will likely be someone else. So that doesn't change what they do at running back anyway. So if they do bring him back, it would, of course, be in a secondary or tertiary role. So as I said in the video, I think they know what number they want to bring him back at. They've probably told him that. That might slightly fluctuate depending on, as I mentioned, once the books balance and they kind of know for certain how much they're working with. But I don't think it would change by much. So they're going to let him enter free agency, see if he can earn any more. And, if he can, then great for him and he can go and earn more money somewhere else. And I think that's kind of where Mary Kay is at with this and kind of what, she thinks is going to happen. But as I said, I even get emotional just even talking about the possibility of it. So if it does happen and he does leave, I will do the video then of the emotional side of it. But for now, if you want to hear my thoughts on it overall, as a business side, on the field side, practicality side, then check out the previous video I did about a week or two ago on Nick Chubb. Finally, with the new league year approaching, just over a week now, or even under a week, is it? Just under a week, actually. With the new league year approaching, the not very well run teams, shall we say, in the NFL are scrambling to get under the salary cap by, traditionally the traditional way of cutting players. You might laugh for me saying that, but, at the end of the day, even with the Watson contract and everything else that has happened the last few years, how many high-profile players have the Browns had to cut? Just saying. I'm just saying. But all seriousness, it is cut season, and we've seen some pretty high-profile cuts around the NFL already. So I'll quickly just go through some of them and just give my quick, couple of words, whether I think the Browns will show any interest. Firstly, the quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers, no, just no. I don't even need to say anything else, just no. Gardner Minshew, throw his name into the potential Browns free agent veteran mix, because it certainly is a possibility in my opinion. He's proven to be a serviceable bridge option in the NFL. He's diced up the Browns enough times. Maybe they bring him in. I certainly wouldn't rule it out. Some defensive linemen. Joey Bosa was quite a surprising bit of news to wake up to this morning. Is it something the Browns would entertain? No. He would be too expensive. He's dealt with a lot of injuries the last few years. I don't think it's something they even inquire about, if I'm totally honest. So interesting to see where Joey does go in the end. And then two guys that, were heavily linked with the Browns back in 2023. Firstly, Javon Hargrave, who obviously ended up signing with the 49ers. He has been cut. I don't think the Browns entertain it. I think he probably either goes ring chasing or tries to get the biggest deal he can get. So I don't think that's a realistic option for the Browns. But the other guy, Jamont Jones, he is a Cleveland kid that, as mentioned, the Browns did have strong interest in him back in 2023. Maybe they reignite that interest depending on what the number would be. I certainly wouldn't rule that one out. I think they might, as I said, inquire about Jamont Jones. Darius Slay, the corner. This was a bit of a surprise with the Eagles releasing him a few days ago. Would the Browns be interested, though? I doubt it. Raheem Mostert, the running back. Maybe the Browns would be interested on a minimum deal as a kind of depth piece, especially if they don't bring Chubb back. But he probably gets a slightly better deal somewhere else, I would imagine. So I think that's probably unlikely as well. And then finally, some wide receivers. Devontae Adams, I mean, depending on the price, they would maybe inquire. But I doubt both sides would be on the same page for any kind of contract. I think it's probably more likely that he goes back to Green Bay. So yeah, I would probably rule that one out. Christian Kirk, same again. I think they could inquire. But I don't think the two sides would be aligned. Plus, he does kind of play a similar role to Judy, so I don't think the fit would necessarily be great anyway. And then finally, Tyler Lockett. I would personally do it on the cheap, to be honest, but I doubt the Browns would. But we'll see. I think he would probably be the most likely out of those wide receivers that have been cut, purely just because it would probably be the cheaper option. You probably wouldn't have to give him any more than 1 year deal. So Tyler Lockett would probably be the most likely, but I wouldn't sit here and say it's likely, shall we say. But that's all of the stuff on the free agents. As I said, it's only going to get more and more as we get closer and closer to the new league year. More cuts, more trades, loads of news in the NFL, as we always get. I'm preparing myself, preparing the videos, preparing the content for when the new league year does start. We can do all of our free agency stuff, talk about potential free agent targets for the Browns, talk about obviously their free agents this year, what guys they will bring back, which guys they'll let enter free agency, all of that good stuff. And that's before we even get to the draft in April. So much to talk about, as always. As I mentioned in my last video, I'm currently going through a move that will be finished by next weekend. So once that is done, I'm ready to throw myself every night into talking about free agency and the draft, because I think it will be that eventful and that busy of a schedule to do so. And at the end of the day, I love doing it, so it's no issue to me. But that would do it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you do enjoy my content, then please drop this video a like, hit the subscribe button. It's free, but it really, really helps out my channel. You can also check the links in the description to see where you can follow and interact with me on social media. As I always say, I'm trying to build a community of Cleveland Browns fans, and even if I only get to talk to one fan a day, I'm happy, because I'm talking Browns football with the best fan base in the world. Thanks again for watching, guys. Enjoy the rest of the week. Have an amazing weekend, but most importantly, go Browns.